Hey, Comics Cubers. Today's guest is Rexy Dorado, who's been on the show before when I interviewed him at Philippine International Comics Festival earlier this year. And now it's in for a longer interview about his new publishing imprint called Raygun, his comic Maharlika, which is about the Philippines if it was a global superpower, and basically how he's doing all of this from the ground up after having had a very successful online venture right before getting into comics. If you like the Comics Cube, please do think about subscribing to our Patreon or making a one-time donation on our PayPal just to kind of keep us going. I really appreciate it. Without any further ado, Raygun presses Rexy Dorado. Welcome back to the Comics Cube, everyone. I am back with Rexy Dorado of Raygun.
Yeah,
How are you,
nice
Rex?
to be back.
Yeah, the last time I spoke to you was Peak Off, and it was a live
Yeah,
stream.
do you do those like often, or was that like or you got kind of handed the table, right? And
I
then
was
you
handed the table, and I said, "What am I going to do with this table?" So,
I realized we should have tried to do something at MIBF because we had a little setup with a couch in the corner of our booth, and maybe sometime next year we can do
dude, you
something.
should have told me to come over.
Yeah, yeah,
Like, I would have happily like run a little talk show for you.
yeah, yeah. Next time,
So,
next MIBF, next time.
Rexy, there was one question I asked to everyone who first comes on the show. And I did ask you, but for the benefit of the people who didn't see our previous live stream with John Ray, why do you love comics?
I love comics. So I grew up as a kid. I spent the first 10 years of my life in Dumaguete. I was really into I think I was more of a Marvel kid. So a lot of X-Men, a lot of Spider-Man. And then I
Ultimate
also
Spider-Man, judging by your age, I'm supposing.
what's that?
Ultimate Spider-Man, judging by your age, I'm supposing.
I'm not sure honestly. It was long ago and I haven't like really gone back to the Marvel side of things. But yeah, and then I wasn't into manga, but yeah, I also grew up on it's called Raygun because of we know it here as Ghost Fighter,
Ah,
the show,
you weren't in a
and
manga,
so
but you were into anime.
I was into anime, so I didn't discover manga until much later, but I grew up with it was Ghost Fighter and then Pokemon, I mean Dragon Ball Z, that whole wave of like mid to late 90s stuff. Was it AXN? And so I grew up with that, I think more than kind of anything else on TV.
Mhm.
And then I realized later that all of those stories were birthed in the comic format, in the form of manga. So I grew up with it, and then kind of didn't read any comics for a while, and then I got back into it 2021, I want to say 22, 2020, 2021. I think around the time when Attack on Titan was in the first of three parts of its fourth season, of its final season.
The final
And
season that lasted like 3 years.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And so because it lasted so long, I was getting spoiled on like I see panels of someone's head being cut off, and I was like, all right, I just need to like just actually read it to the end, because the last chapter had just been released. So that was my reintroduction into manga and then comics through that. I got into on the Western side less. Again, I haven't gotten back into Marvel and DC, but more on Image and Saga was my and I think it's still my favorite on the Western comics front. Um, and I just love it as like this medium that especially in this world where I don't think it's a controversial opinion necessarily to say that like people who are making the decisions on what kind of content to put funding behind don't necessarily know what what is going to resonate with people.
Mhm.
It's this medium where you can have a team of one or two people, maybe some assistants, and build a world and a whole story and get it out there in front of people. And you get the closest, the closest version of really seeing an artist or an artistic team's like vision in a visual form, without needing hundreds of production staff and like all the processes. And so that's what I kind of came to love about comics when I discovered it a bit later.
I have so many questions just coming off of that one answer.
Yeah.
I'm going to start from the very beginning, which is
Mm,
Spaghetti, because I think if somebody who's not from the Philippines is watching this, actually, I think a lot of people from the Philippines, even
mm,
watching this, might be, they see me talking to you and they're going to think of Manila.
yeah,
Um,
yeah.
Paint for me a picture of what Dumaguete is like in terms of readership, in terms of how that cultivates, the
Mm.
love of reading. Because I hear Dumaguete is a pretty reader-friendly town.
It's Yeah, it's interesting. It's a reader-friendly town, but one thing about right now in Dumaguete is there's no major bookstores. And I realized that after spending a bit more time this year. Like National closed sometime in the past couple of years. So I think there's three or four small bookstores that are around, and the books and there's a book sale, but no National, no fully booked. Um, and so that's a bit for me a little bit puzzling. But I think despite that, there's still kind of a healthy number of people who seek out books. There's a lot of writers, and a couple of like Palanca winning writers out of Dumaguete. Um, and there is a kind of movement to I think I'm not sure if I'm not updated on it, so I don't know if it's changed, but I think the name for the city of literature is kind of up for grabs for the Philippines, and it's like Dumaguete versus Quezon City is uh is the fight that there's people in Dumaguete trying to push for. Um, so yeah, so I'm not sure the history of it, but there's a healthy like literary community here. I think the fact that it's a university town with
Mhm.
Suleiman is a factor. Um,
Well, also
yeah,
the famous Dumaguete Writers Workshop takes
yeah,
place
yeah,
in Dumaguete.
right,
For those not in the know, that means like a bunch of super qualified writers get together in Dumaguete, I think
yeah,
annually or biannually, and then do a whole workshop to try to be better
right,
writers
right.
in Dumaguete.
It's actually yeah, it's interesting because there's that for writing, and then also there's a I can't remember the name of it. There's a music workshop where that brings a bunch of people into Dumaguete. That's also you know helped the careers of some people who ended up becoming big names nationally. So there is a little bit of this here where Dumaguete becomes kind of a meeting point for creatives around the Philippines and a place where people kind of learn from each other and build.
Awesome. Rexy, if somebody Googles your name,
Mm.
comics are not the first thing that's going to come up. Uh,
Slowly, I think it's slowly. The first page is slowly becoming more comics, which I'm
Slowly
happy about.
becoming more comics. Uh, but so I used to work for Nielsen, and at
Mm.
Nielsen, I had a lot of conversations with a little video streaming company called Kumu,
Yeah,
which you founded.
yeah.
What was like? How old were you when you co-founded Kumu?
I was, I think 25. Um, yeah, 25. So when at least as an idea, 25, and then I moved back to the Philippines to do it full time. It's 26.
Do you have a background in tech, or
No, not tech.
so how'd that
Uh,
work?
so, so the long story short, actually, so before anything else, I wanted to be a writer, and then in high school, I wanted to like make movies, and then somehow in college, I ended up going a different path, which was more economics and international development, and then I uh, at the tail end of that, I started this nonprofit that I did for 5 years, which was we had a program that brought Filipinos from connected like Filipinos, mostly students, some recent graduates from abroad, brought them back to the Philippines and connected them to these 3-month internships with nonprofits, creative businesses, and eventually tech startups in the last couple of years of it. Um, uh, I kind of did that full time ish for about 3 or 4 years, and then in that time, when I was building up the board of directors, I got to know a couple of people from the tech space. So one was this entrepreneur named Winston Damarillo. He helped fund the nonprofit for a bit, and I actually ended up being the lead writer for a book that he did, which was about tech disruption in the Philippines. So like this was 2016, so it was before, the current wave of stuff, but we were talking about things like AI, blockchain, et cetera, and how they would impact Philippine companies and businesses. Mannix was an illustrator for that, so that was also kind of my first introduction into the comic scene. And the second guy, so that was Winston, and then the second guy was Roland, who at the time he was doing digital marketing in LA, but we'd get together every 3 months, like around when the board meeting was happening, and just talk about like how do we do this at a bigger scale of connecting the global Filipino community and leaders and creators in the Philippines, and like different ways to tackle that with tech. From anything like as small as doing kind of our own podcast, highlighting stories, to like a small e-commerce shop that would take products to the US. And so they're just like ideas, right? And then 2017 was when he was advising this company called Agora, which was powering a lot of they power our live streaming at Kumu. So they do like back end voice and video technology, and they were seeing a lot of these platforms pop up in especially different parts of Asia. Um, uh, and most, so a lot of them were messaging platforms, and then some live streaming. And we decided to kind of take the plunge and try to build something for the Philippines. At first, it was a messenger app was the idea, like a Filipino WeChat, where you have the messenger and you get enough people in, and then you can start to plug in different products and services. And um, but yeah, so we launched the messenger February 2018, saw that nobody wanted another messenger in 2018, and then there was this live streaming feature that we had built, 2 weeks out of the like 3-month dev cycle for the MVP was focused on the live streaming, and it was only available to like 30 out of the first 1,000 users, but that was the feature that kept people coming back, and where they were finding something that wasn't what they were getting in the other platforms.
So this is interesting to me because whenever I try to describe Kumu to people who aren't from the Philippines or who didn't use Kumu, it's so
Mm,
hard to describe what it is because I kept saying it's a video platform
mm.
on demand, but it's also appointment viewing at the same time.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. So and I didn't have a peg, right? I didn't have
Right.
something else to compare it to properly. Uh,
Mm.
so how'd you come up with the idea for something so unique?
So there's a few platforms like it more in China. And so that was where we saw more kind of case studies of these platforms that were it was focused on a live streaming format, but they became this broader kind of community and entertainment platform. I think at the time we were seeing people were there were live stream. There was this older lady who was like a live stream matchmaker who was really popular and making a lot of money. She'd like match people on dates on a live stream format. And there was this farmer who was making a lot of money from live streaming. Um, so that model it exists. It exists. I would say more in China, where I think outside of China, live streaming is either it's like a Twitch, which is more gaming focused, and then it evolves to like the same people, but they start talking about other stuff. And then there's a big set of live streaming apps that are just predominantly like borderline adult content. and they make a lot of money, but and I think the feature set is the same at Kumu, but like what they really lean on is it's a quasi dating or it's just people kind of flirting with their viewers. Um, Whereas Kumu was more from the beginning. It was like we took the stance that it was going to be more family friendly, and then it had a bit more of the kind of you had the user generated UGC stuff, but then you also we our first wave of growth was the live stream game shows, and so we started to kind of have this like almost like TV-ish side of it also that became during the pandemic. There was PBB and Miss Universe and those kinds of things were on Kumu. Um,
It exploded during the pandemic. Like it was crazy.
yeah, yeah,
Watching things on Kumu, people like actresses were holding, musicians were holding concerts.
right, right, yeah. I think
Uh,
everyone who was kind of dependent on live in-person events to some degree, whether it was like a theater production or just busking in a corner of a mall or a street corner. Kumu kind of became their replacement for that income during the pandemic.
when it was blowing up during the pandemic, did you guys envision that that would be sustainable, or did you think it was a bubble?
We I think we definitely were optimistic on the momentum staying after the pandemic, and I think part of it was like there were a few like partial openings in Manila before the full kind of opening of the lockdown. And in those like kind of like there I think there was a month where it loosened up, and then there was another like couple of weeks where it loosened up, and at those times we didn't really see an impact on our on our user base. And so that gave us some confidence that it was gonna kind of continue in the same way post pandemic. But what actually happened was like post pandemic, everything just changed. So all the numbers, it became more expensive to get people in, and then people spent a lot less. And so we spent kind of the 2 years after the pandemic trying to readjust to the new market that we were in. I think also at the same time is TikTok didn't exist when we started. We knew about ByteDance as a company,
Yeah.
but they kind of had like the Facebook of China in Toutiao, but they just kind of started TikTok like around the time we were starting, and then they acquired Musically like year 2 or 3, and then blew up. And so we also just faced a lot more kind of competition on that front.
Yeah.
But we're alive. I mean, we're alive, and we're growing again as of the past kind of year. Not crazy numbers, not pandemic numbers, but I think Roland is still there. I left in 2023, but Roland is still there, and I think the future is kind of looking bright again on
Yeah.
that front.
One of the peacops I think was held through Kumu.
Yeah, yeah, that's
Yeah,
right.
that was interesting because yeah, it's hard to tease out how much of that was post-pandemic behavior and how much of that was TikTok, because TikTok kind of showed up when everything had opened up again. Um,
Yeah.
and we knew about your love for comics, or Kumu's love for comics, because during the pandemic, Kumu was in full support of a
Yeah.
particular comic book app, which we
Mhm.
will not discuss.
Yeah. Let's
So
let's keep that in in the archives.
So, you mentioned that you got back into the comic format, and to everybody watching, when we say comics, we mean anything where pictures and words tell a story in sequence.
Mhm.
So, when you say manga and comics, those are the same thing. Okay. Um, Now, you mentioned getting back into the comic format in 2021,
Mhm.
uh, because of Attack on Titan. And I'm gonna have to ask you this: what did you think of the finale?
Uh I think the finale, I think it made sense as the finale. But I think it's not I think it's reasonable for people to be disappointed. I feel like I don't know if I'm wrong about it, but I feel like the anime version was like kind of went over a bit better than when it first came out in manga, maybe because people had more time to kind of process it in between.
Yeah.
Um, but I do think it's the kind of thing where yeah, there's people's kind of expectations that were built up in the first half that the story takes a very different turn after a while. I did enjoy the first part of that turn, like the first parts of season four. I really
Yeah.
enjoyed. And then the last, I was left a little cold, but I also felt like the it was hard for the story to go a different way than that, right? And end a different way than how it ended.
Yeah.
Um,
Yeah. I'll tell you what I thought, which was that
yeah.
I think that it had been faithful up to that point, that it would
Mm.
have been stupid to change the ending.
Right, right, right.
It had to stick to its guns. Now, if anybody had a problem with the ending, really your problem was with the turn that happened way before the ending.
Yeah, yeah.
And you think that they're going to undo that turn at some point. You keep thinking that because you want
Right,
to go a
right,
certain
exactly.
way.
Exactly. Like I really wanted it to end a different way. And but I get that it kind of had to in a way end this way.
It's sending a
I think maybe,
message.
yeah, yeah. And I think, I mean, maybe there's a different writer could have figured out a way to kind of still thread the needle of like making it satisfying and on theme and not have that reaction, but I don't know. I mean, that's all hypotheticals, right? Um,
I just think the moment they killed Potato Girl was the point of no
yeah,
return. Uh,
right, right.
Rexy, 2021. When did
Hmm.
you start writing Maharlika?
I started writing Maharlika late 2021. Um, and I think I had finished the script for the first volume by the end of 2021. And I think that's also around the time that I reached out to John Ray. And kind of we decided to work with each other on it. So 2021. I don't remember when I started writing it, but yeah, first volume was 2021, and actually the volume 2 to 6, at least the first draft of it was done mid 2022.
Holy crap, you're done.
Yeah, yeah,
So is that just with John and Sam now?
yeah, yeah. It's the work. I mean, I still kind of come back and revise every now and then, but I'm more on the business and marketing side, I guess, at this point of how do we keep this thing going and get it in front of more people. And then
I want to talk
yeah.
about that because okay, 20 so that was 2021. That's amazing by the way, which is like you just got back into comics and then you wrote 6 volumes. That's amazing.
Yeah. Well, it was I think in a way I was chewing on something like the idea for a while. Like I mentioned I wanted to do movies when I was in high school, and there was one that I was always trying to do, but then I was a kid with a lot less confidence, and I was a kind of high schooler that like I didn't do anything in high school because I was just scared to try. And I think it was partially like the moving from the Philippines to the US, and this part of the US that had like no other Asian people, and like kind of a lot of my self-esteem issues and internalized racism. And so I had ideas for like a film slash TV series that I wanted to do, like at least write a script of that was more post-apocalyptic, but still kind of dystopian, futuristic, sci-fi. Um, and had some of the elements of Maharlika. And I'd kind of go back to that story every couple of years and think about it more, but never actually get around to doing more than a few pages. And then at some point, it kind of merged with my like the personal journey of coming back to the Philippines and doing this work that this to some degree or another was touching on this idea that of like the potential of the Philippines and like we kind of culturally and economically being able to imagine a Philippines that's stronger than where it currently is. Um, uh, and and at some point that merged with the kind of sci-fi dystopian thing that I was trying to figure out. Um, and then became a Harlika.
You went to college in the US?
Yeah, yeah. I went to Brown, and so I went to high school, middle school, high school in Ohio, like super middle of nowhere part of the U.S. with no Filipinos, and
You're
then
the only brown person.
yeah, I was one of three Asian kids out of a school of I think 1,200, um, and I think there was one other Filipino, and the other one was Chinese, and actually and then one Indian kid, so maybe four of us that were kind of Asian out of the whole thing.
And of course, all four of you hung out together.
Yeah, yeah. Hung out, and then yeah, and then a lot of like my friends were like kind of uh like emo uh what do you like emo pothead like white kids.
Yeah, I went to school. I went to college in the U.S. where I was the only
Yeah.
Filipino,
Where
and
was that?
I went to Lafayette, in
Yeah, yeah,
Pennsylvania, and it's a little awkward when you're the only Filipino
yeah.
because compared to the other international students, you're so Americanized,
Right,
right?
right, right. Even like it's not super long ago, but like between then and now was like at least there's a lot more Asian representation,
Yeah, absolutely.
which I think makes a difference. But that yeah, back then it was like there were no, and to the degree that people form some of their worldview on around like movies that they watch, TV shows that they watch, like there were no protagonists that were Asian, right? And so it was like you're very much like not the main character
Never.
of your
Especially
story.
no Filipinos. Like people didn't even
Yeah,
know where
yeah.
we were.
Hmm.
People think you speak Spanish. People think all sorts of
Yeah.
stuff. Tell me about Maharlika. For the people who don't know what it's about,
Hmm.
what is it about?
Yeah. So Maharlika takes place in this alternate timeline where, uh, 100 years ago, we somehow won our revolution against Spain, through, you know, through some breakthroughs that we don't really touch on yet at the beginning of the story. And part of it is this mystery of like what happened, like how did we win? How did we, over the 100 years that would follow, the Philippines becomes the most powerful country in the world. So like, how the hell did that happen? Um, and It's partially a mystery of kind of figuring that out, the what happened in the past 100 years, and then partially this kind of now uh, in the present day. There's like Maharlika is falling apart, right? In a few different ways. There's rebellions happening. We've annexed most of Southeast Asia and some kind of post-colonial East Asian countries. It's become this massive empire, but there's kind of rebellions and revolutions brewing. There's conspiracies, and there's this strange set of things that are just happening on the Pasig River that seems like it has nothing to do with that, where there are things and people disappearing and reappearing, um, and uh, and it's a bit of a kind of this rabbit hole of like how all of these things connect. Um, that's
Are
a high
you
level, yeah, a
are
high
you a
level.
are you a planner or do you make it up as you go along? I kind of feel like you're a planner.
I'm a planner. I'm a planner at the high level. Like I have a hard time starting a story and unless I know where it's going. Um, uh, so so I plan on like the major elements, but chapter by chapter, I think I kind of figure out the beats within that chapter as I write them. So but definitely, yeah, definitely more planner.
Yeah, because I find it hard to talk about Maharlika without spoiling it.
Mm,
Because exactly
yeah,
what you said, the Philippines is the most powerful country in the world, etc. Um, that part is fine. I find it hard to talk about because I feel like so many things within
mm,
the story are interconnected, and I feel like if I
yeah,
give away one thing, it gives
yeah,
away a lot of things. Like two people have the same superpower,
yeah.
but I can't describe what that superpower is because I feel like the moment I do, uh,
Right, right, right.
people will so the person I'm describing it to is gonna figure out like, oh, so this part is gonna happen because just
Yeah,
because of the nature of what that superpower is.
right, right.
For the people who have read it and who definitely know what it is that I'm talking about, how hard is it to write one person with that superpower, much less two?
I think writing it in a way that doesn't break the story is the hard thing, and the that doesn't. It's actually it's a little bit easier with two because they balance each other out.
Okay.
Um, but there is like I think that power, and then the bigger thing that's connected to is also it has a challenge of like how do you write it in a way that doesn't like erase the stakes, right?
Mhm.
Uh, and so that, I think that's kind of the challenge of it that I don't know if you've like read the second volume.
I have, yeah.
There's like there's parts of that is like okay like you can have some things be oh I don't know it's hard to even say it's hard to even say that
Exactly.
sentence without giving it without giving it away, right?
So let's talk about
So
another thing about Maharlika, as opposed
yeah.
to you've given me the world, you've given me the premise.
Hmm.
Thematically, for the
Mm.
people who want to get into the heart of the story, what is Maharlika about?
Thematically, I think it's about because so it takes place in this world that's very different from ours. And that's clear from the beginning of like you have this Korean kid who's studying in Manila, and Korea is kind of seen as this province of Maharlika, and she's looking up to the K-pop, or the P-pop stars, and wondering if like Korea will ever have its moment. So it's a very different world than the one we live in. And a big, I think, one of, if not uh, the major theme is like how people kind of try to shape the reality that we live in, and this, the struggle between different agendas towards that, and then like so that at the kind of like a broader political level of different people have different ideas of how the society should look, and then when you blow that up with certain superpowers, and that becomes like even more elevated. And then at the micro level is like people who are kind of stuck in the middle of that, and they have certain ideas of what's right and what's wrong and how the world should be, um, and how they kind of struggle towards those, and how those different kind of motives clash with each other, and uh, you know a lot of the time lead to unintended outcomes. Um,
Yeah.
so yeah, so there's one. I think there's actually like one that's not like a big spoiler is Mal, the main character. A lot of his backstory isn't like shown yet on the page, but like he's somebody who had this very idealized version of or like had really strong ideals about like what Maharlika should be, and then kind of took a stand on like what that should be, and in terms of calling out the corruption in within Maharlika, and then that worked to a certain degree for the kind of change that he wanted to see, but then it also had a price on like the people around him, and then because of that he's kind of stepped back and kind of and you know gone into hiding or retirement essentially, and is pulled back into it. And so a lot of it is that like kind of the these like different intentions leading to consequences that you don't expect, and how do you kind of stay uh you know still be a positive force when you know that your intentions often won't have the outcomes that you want. So that's kind of at the micro level, and at the macro level is yeah like a bunch of kind of Imperial Maharlika versus these rebel forces and these provinces that are trying to fight for independence, and then you also have the things that happen in the past 100 years that um, and then that's and then there's some hints of like this broader thing of like what is America doing, what is China doing, like what are the other kind of world powers doing, and within this, so it's all like some not all, but like a lot of it kind of ties back to that theme and that idea.
Maharlika has a big ensemble cast. Is
Mm.
it hard to keep all of that on track?
Um, it's I mean we'll see, right, as the story unfolds and as people kind of uh yeah, I think people have been able to kind of follow it and get invested in kind of both the characters that you start with and the ones who are introduced along the way. I do think there's some like economy of uh page space that's there just by way of like the Philippine, like, you know, and you know this, like we can't afford to be in like Japanese manga where you can have an entire chapter that's just like one person like winding up a punch, right? And then thinking about their backstory. And so there's some competition for how much room you get to flesh out the character in an efficient way. So that is, I mean, that's kind of a challenge within
What
that, but
Rexy is saying is that Filipino
yeah.
people are poor.
Yeah, yeah, we can't afford weekly manga releases. We're struggling to get into like a monthly releases. But it's like if you want to tell a story that's longer form, yeah, you have to kind of be a bit more efficient with your storytelling. Um, and
Maharlika will be 6 volumes long, and
yeah,
not
six
however
volumes.
long One Piece is.
Right, right, right. 6 volumes, 30 chapters, all written. And yeah, and I think what helps with the ensemble is that they're all kind of in batches, right? Like you have Mal and Yari are kind of their own group in the middle of everything, and then the Aguila, you know, kind of Imperial Knights in a way are their own group, and the Maharlikan like political kind of cast around them is one group, and then you have the kind of a small rebel alliance. So they all kind of fit into that. Uh, the, and so I think that helps a bit with juggling all of them.
That's actually really smart because a few years ago, a movie called Avengers Infinity War came out.
Mm,
And I was like, I remember wondering how did they make it look like they balanced what I think was 36 characters? And
yeah.
when I looked like right at it, when I really looked at it, I realized they did two things. The first
Mm,
thing is that they made Thanos the protagonist,
yeah.
right? The second thing is that everyone is in groups. There's
Mhm.
only like 3 or 4 groups. Uh,
Right, right.
so you're able to follow each group. You don't actually have to spend a lot of time with every single member of the group,
Mhm.
but there's like a key person or a couple of people within each group that you spend time with.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
so you're able to follow it very clearly. I thought that was so. I think taking that kind of approach makes it more manageable.
Mhm.
Okay, how did you hook up with John Ray, who is also not from Manila?
Yeah, yeah. So John Ray's from Baguio. I I was working with a different artist at first. Do you know Koi Carry On?
I've heard of him. Yeah,
Yeah, so his style is a bit more I think genre definitely also grew up with a lot of anime and manga um influence, but Koi's is like the kind of style that you would maybe see a lot more in like like a colored anime, like a full color anime or like a webtoon. um and so I worked with him first. I found him. He was one of the artists on Mythspace, and I liked his style. And he actually did the first character design for Mal, who's the protagonist of Maharlika. Um, but then he was just too busy. So he had too many projects, and couldn't commit to the timeline. And so I started looking for another artist, and I found John. So I think the first thing I saw was his banner on Facebook was like this guy in this futuristic suit. I can't tell if there's a jetpack on it, but like he's wearing some kind of futuristic suit in front of the Banawe rice terraces. Um, and then I was scrolling down, and so the things I saw right away were there was that, which was like, this very Filipino scene, but like this is, very like futuristic kind of character in the middle of it. Two, he had these one shots that were like 2 to 3 pages. They were kind of like Filipino Black Mirror. So the one that I always go back to is called like Eraser HD, like Eraserhead, right? It was like this thing where if you've already watched all your favorite movies and none of the content looks interesting on Netflix, you can like erase your memory of watching your favorite movie so you can watch it again for the first time. Um, so he did some of that kind of storytelling that I thought was really interesting, and then also had that flavor, like Filipino flavor, right? Of like that was like it's a pretty universal thing, but like eraser, they had the erase your head reference, um and then I think the third thing I saw was he did a bunch of Tressa fan art where you could see a bit more of his like kind of his action, like I mean Tress is not very anime, but like the way that he did it, like you could see the kind of anime action like dynamism in terms of poses in his Tressa fan art. Um, so it just felt like when I saw it, it just felt like the perfect fit. And then I reached out to him and we decided to do a prologue together first. So I actually wrote the first script, the script for the first volume before I wrote the prologue. And then he'd asked if we can start with something shorter, like a six page prologue. And so I wrote the prologue. Um, and and yeah, and then we like I guess we like working together, and we like working on this world together. So we decided to move from there to the full volume.
He's great, huh? He's great.
Yeah. Yeah, super super like the in terms of being like it hits the spot if you like manga and anime, but it's still like very unique and very Filipino, and also just very just him.
No,
And just how the art, yeah.
100%, because I read Maharlika and I see obviously the dimensions are manga.
Mm,
Um, well, length and width are manga.
mm. Yeah,
This is not.
yeah.
Because this much thicker. Okay.
Yeah.
So and so obviously the dimensions manga, but I feel like the art style. Also, I feel like the demarcation between manga and Western comics and whatever
Mm,
else is like almost completely gone now at this point because
yeah.
manga's influenced so much. A lot of the Western artists also draw in a manga style, but
Mm,
I really like it because John's art style thrives in black and white, and
yeah.
so does Sam's art style, the your background artist.
Hmm.
Because when I see the backgrounds here as drawn by Sam, I don't really feel like they need to be colored.
Mm,
Uh,
yeah.
like maybe they'll benefit from color, but I don't really feel like they need to be.
Right.
So yeah,
Yeah. Yeah, I think even from the beginning, I think he said something about kind of manga inspired art style, but like more Western comics inspired pacing. And I think
I
to
see
a
that.
degree that's and I feel like there's going to be a chunk of Filipino comics that will kind of take that identity. And I think it's kind of this meeting also of like inspirations and necessity. So like a lot of especially our generation and more I think with every generation is like anime inspired. But our constraint is that we don't have a Shonen Jump that can pay for 5 6 assistants and all everyone working full time to crank out a chapter every week. And so we have to like we have to at least in this stage, I think you kind of have to write to a book, right, to a volume, and have something that kind of is satisfying within 150 pages, even if it's not the full story, is kind of feels like a full meal uh, within 150-ish pages.
I feel like the combination of that American dynamism, pacing, and the anime, the manga dynamism, along with the subject matter, of course, but along with the song titles that you're picking,
Mm,
which are a combination of Filipino
mhm.
titles as well as American titles. Um, I feel like it gives the book a very, very, very unique identity. And whenever I read it, I'm like, yeah, this is definitely written and created by a guy with a point of view,
Yeah, yeah.
a specific point of view. Um, Perhaps the point of view of somebody who has been around the world.
Yeah, yeah. and it's yeah, I think it's that. I think it's a bit of like the Filipino identity crisis as well. Um, and uh, yeah. So I think partially that kind of thematically, and then also partially just who we are personally and like our inspirations and I feel like I'm the type of just writer that like there's writers that kind of they do their own thing very well, and then there's I think writers that kind of do their own thing, but it's also like always to some degree an homage to other things and like I think like Tarantino is a director who I think he like cuts to his music right and there's shots that are clear homages of like of Italian spaghetti westerns and so I think I'm more like similar in terms of process like to get excited about writing I have to tie it to something that I'm like love and get excited about whether it's a song or a kind of thing that a story that I grew up with. So I think that shows itself in Maharlika for sure.
As of the moment of this recording, you have 7 days left on your Kickstarter for your Maharlika, a Filipino sci-fi epic Compendium One, which will collect volumes 1 to 3. Does that mean
Mhm.
you are not releasing volume 3 separately?
We'll be releasing Volume 3 separately. So
Okay.
we'll release Volume 3 by January. And then as soon as that's done, we're gonna take a little bit of time to add some bonuses, and then we'll ship it to the printer probably by end of January. The compendium to the printer,
Okay.
and then the compendium will come out after that.
Well, here's the amazing thing is that you had a goal of 5,000 US dollars, which you met on day one. So
Mm,
at the moment, you are actually at 15,903 US dollars. You met this goal on day one, which says to me a
mm,
few things. The main thing being that you have marketed this book enough to get that kind
mm,
of support. The first, I don't remember the first time I heard about this book, right?
mm,
I really don't. But I know that the first time I saw it out in the wild was because I was taking an art workshop in Comuna.
mhm.
And then I walked into
Yeah,
a store called
Manila Middle Ground,
Manila Underground
Middle
and
Ground.
Manila
Yeah.
Middle Ground. Yeah,
Mhm.
okay, Manila Middle Ground. And then a dude behind the counter said to me, "Are you the Comics Cube? I'm the artist of Mahart."
Yeah, yeah.
And it was John Ray. And then I bought the book. And then
Mm,
um I realized like you have one very prominent local comic book writer, I won't say his name because I didn't get his permission, told me
mm,
that he thinks that you guys have built the model for how to kick off a publishing imprint for comics.
mm.
How did you do this? Did you have a business background like this? Do you have a marketing background? What's going on? What was the plan?
Uh, I don't know. I mean, honestly, it still feels like we're figuring it out, and I think the truth is that we are still figuring it out. Um, uh, I think Maharlika was, um, there was that previous publisher that we had worked with, and Maharlika was initially kind of under that, and then we were all the rights returned to the creators when that fell apart, and so I think we were lucky to have had a couple of years banked by the time that we started the imprint. Um, the other thing that last year I wasn't able to do as much as I'd wanted towards because I'd wanted to start this imprint as pretty much as soon as I left Kumu. But last year I ended up not having as much time to like really build the foundations. But the one thing I was able to do was just give out 20 free copies to a few people on Instagram. And then that became kind of this word of mouth machine where they were part of this group of about 100 other creators. And they started recommending it to those friends. And that part just kind of grew organically. Um, and yeah, and then I think we officially launched Volume 2 in April of this year. We launched Raygun, the imprint on was it July, right?
June.
So
Yeah,
2 or 3
start
months.
end of June, I think.
Yeah.
because kickoff
Um,
was the first weekend of July.
yeah. So it's still really raw. It's still kind of fresh out of the oven at this point. To the degree that it's hard to kind of codify like what's worked and what like will work repeatedly versus what was specific to, you know, Maharlika and like this story and the fact that we had like two volumes ready off the bat. And so it was a bit easier to get people uh have people's trust so they could step into this world and that their investment would get rewarded over time. Um, I do think uh the kind of the group of like early fans and reviewers that we'd semi stumbled into is something that I think having that core 50 to 100 people that are excited about these kinds of Filipino stories to kind of be the first audience of it and help spread the word is something that we're starting to see now with like Lucia Sewell's Nightgate and like the early love that was able to receive. Um, so I think that's one part, and I think that's one part that I kind of learned from Kumu, which was like the first 100 loyal fans is really like that's one of the most valuable things in the world to kind of build up. Whoa, 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 whoa! There's an earthquake happening. Um,
Wow.
anyway, what was I saying?
The first 100 loyal fans.
Yeah, the first 100 loyal fans, because for Kumu it was like a hundred early Kumu people who all came from I think they came from the game show. Like they came for the live stream game shows and they stuck around in between the game shows to kind of do these little study groups and hangouts. And they became our moderators and some of our first employees. But in the early days, they were just users who kind of just hung out and like we'd hang out with them in Roland's, my co-founder's, his family's backyard in Quezon City. Um, so I think for me with Maharlika, it was always like building towards getting those first 100 fans by like giving a book here and there, and then just kind of keeping track and recognizing when somebody was coming up organically again and again. And it wasn't until I felt like I had a good footing in that I really started to kind of market it on, put a little bit of ads budget behind it, do a little more in terms of like really selling the book. So yeah, so I think that's one piece of it. I don't think that's the full, formula if there is one, but that was the kind of the one that and you had to kind of nail down and then from there start to grow.
So how does it work? Let's say Lucia Sewell's Nightgate, or I know you have another one in the works
Yeah.
with a woman named, I'm forgetting,
Mayari.
Mayari.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
So how does that work? Like they come up to you with a pitch.
Hmm.
Um, do you foot the bill for the publishing or?
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah. So we flip the bill for the we pay the creators per chapter, which is, I mean, it's not like completely like advance of any work, but it's kind of it's at least like advance in advance of the full volume, right? So we pay them per chapter that gets delivered to us, um, which means that they can, and we pay them enough. It varies. We're still like figuring out the exact model of it, but it's at least enough that like somebody can say no to a lot of other projects. And in the case of John Ray, it was enough for him to kind of feel secure stepping down from his full-time job
Gigil.
at or Giggle, yeah, at the time, and kind of know that he'd make enough income from drawing Maharlika, and then also his store middle ground that he could put a bit more focus into it.
So
Um,
he owns Manila Middle Ground.
he's one of three owners, I think.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's him and his two friends. Um, so uh, so that's the model that we kind of started with, and I think the model that we want to kind of prove can work is that you can pay a team of creators enough to be able to put out work, semi consistently. So at least if not one chapter every month, then at least you're able to ship a volume every year. And that you can, as a publisher, you can front that, and pay to print the books and do the marketing behind it, and still kind of, and pay royalties to the artists, after the publishing, and there's still enough of a market that you can do all of that and kind of make your money back, right? Like, not profit yet. I think that's in, I think when it's still some time away, but
It's a
at
business. It's
least,
going to be a while.
yeah, yeah, yeah. You can at least like do that, make that upfront investment, and then kind of recoup the money that you put in, by selling it between 1,000 to 2,000 copies, and you can start to kind of reinvest that into future, other titles, future volumes, and then also things like animation and other adaptations of the work. So
Thinking
that's
long term
the
here.
Yeah,
Thinking
yeah.
long
So that's the
term.
thing that we wanna figure out. I don't think we figured it out yet, but like, I think we at least know that we can do it kind of at this scale, and then, you know, and at like a couple thousand copies, you can still make the numbers work and not be losing money or not losing too much money. And then off of that base, you at least you're able to build a set of stories that have potential to to grow into something much bigger.
Is everything creator owned?
Yeah, the creators own their IP. So we just have a publishing contract, where we publish the books, and then, so we make the revenue from the books, and we give them a percent of that as royalty.
That's amazing. Like,
Yeah.
like you got back into comics in 2021, and then this. That's amazing.
Mm.
That's
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, it's been exciting. I think it's the kind of thing where there's still so much work to be done, but we've been like, surprised and grateful by the amount of, kind of support and traction that we've gotten in these first, this first year really of this strategy, um and yeah, and kind of enough to get started, right, and see how far we can push the model.
I believe also you now have a fan club.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The gay guns.
When did you find out about that? MIBF?
I think they came to our ray gun launch, and then they made they came up with the name and made the group chat on that night. They kind of stuck around and hung out like late that night, and yeah,
Ray Gun Press, making friendships.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's also the thing, right? Is kind of, and I think it happens to a degree with comics, but I think that consistency of, I think part of it is also just getting people paid for it, right? To be able to have time to make consistent work. But I think when you have that consistent work, then you start to have people that, bond over reading the same thing that they're waiting for the next release of, and the yeah, and kind of friendships form, communities form around that.
No, it's a small thing. It's a small thing that I don't think gets emphasized enough because um, there is, in comics, there is the whole debate. Like, if an
Mm,
artist is late, do you wait
mm,
or do you get somebody else to fill in?
yeah.
Filling in means it comes out at a consistent schedule.
Hmm.
Waiting means the artist actually draws it. So
Right,
there
right.
are, you know, the value of the artist is weighed
Hmm.
against the consistency of the schedule. In the
Right, right. Yeah,
that's
yeah.
how big consistency can
Hmm.
be. Rexy,
Yeah.
uh, do you have anything else you want to plug before we go off the air, um, about
What do we
Reagan,
want
about
to
Maharlika?
Well, I think the Kickstarter might be over by the time we finish this. But yeah, I think I'm,
Are
I'm
you
excited
allowing
about.
late pledges?
I haven't decided yet. Probably. I think it's one of those like why not things.
Yeah.
Um, so we might keep keep it open for late pledges at least until the end of the year. So that's one to check out. I think if you just search Maharlika on Kickstarter, it should show up.
I'll put a link
Um,
down below.
yeah, I'm excited about our next titles. So Nightgate is first volume's halfway done. I think we can get done or close to done on the full volume by the end of the year. That one's by Lucia Azul, more kind of urban fantasy with a tinge of horror. And also I think a very unique like voice and story. But with if you're somebody who's a fan of anime and manga and those kinds of characters, like it has like it'll satisfy your itch on that front as well. Um, More Power is the one that I'm writing, and then Sampai is drawing. That one we're taking a bit of time because Sampai is actually helping with like just miscellaneous things. So the Maharlika compendium cover, the main one is him.
Oh,
He
really?
did a bit of, he did a bit of background work for an animated trailer that we're doing for Maharlika, so like a proof of concept for a Maharlika animated film. He did a little bit of work around that. And so we're taking it a bit slow on that story, but also that's one I'm excited about once we're able to get that first volume out. Maybe more like mid-ish next year. Um,
I'm
and
very
yeah,
excited about that being an animated film.
yeah, and we're working on. I think that's the next thing is how to figure out a model that works for animation. Because uh, honestly, it's really hard to like it to in a country where you can spend less than 100,000, like maybe even less than $50,000 on a like adult film that you give to a market that already wants it, like that's a model that works. And so or just the same old telenovelas that kind of are the teleseries that make enough money. It's hard to kind of to go to someone and say like, hey, put money into this thing that's going to take 3 years. There
Yeah.
hasn't been a precedent for like how much money this is going to make. And so it's really kind of an unknown space that like a few of us are trying to step into. And there's like Rocket Sheep is doing great work. Studio Heartbreak with the Lovers is doing like really exciting work. Uh, Toon City is doing also an animated series. So there's a few of us that are kind of doing it, but it's all like frontier territory. So kind of figuring out the business, the financing around it, is something that to a degree our Kickstarter right now was like to be able to
Prove it.
yeah, just to see how Kickstarter feels and like what makes a good Kickstarter so that we can figure out a Kickstarter for that film, which is going to be, and I think a lot harder or it's going to take more work to
It's going to
to
be
get the
more
funding.
money, but
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah,
But
um,
you'll find the base for that.
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
pretty
I think
sure
so
the
too.
trajectory you're going.
So I think it's up to like kind of all of us right now like that are doing creative work to prove that it's something that can work and is worth doing um and yeah, and then there is really kind of an audience around these stories.
Rexy, congratulations. What you're doing is very exciting. I believe everybody who's talking, Maharlika is all Raygun is all over my feed, my
Yeah,
comics feed at the very least. And it's not just because of you, it's also because of the people talking about Raygun, because you guys are really making a mark, you're making noise, and quality comics. So congratulations.
yeah,
The
thank you for having.
Kickstarter for Maharlika, the first compendium is down below in the links. Everyone, please go give it a look.
Awesome. Thank you. Thanks everyone.